Hello everyone. Welcome to Dr. Lou's VCE Science channel. Today, let's learn together about the 2023 chemistry exam in the Northern Hemisphere. We will focus on short answer questions related to reaction heat, chemical equilibrium, and reaction rates. My explanations may not be perfect. If any teachers, parents, or classmates find errors, please feel free to provide your guidance. This question was related to the thermochemical equation. The thermochemical equation had two parts, the chemical equation and the heat of the reaction. Giving 2 points for the title were also given separately, the correct chemical equation and the heat of reaction of this equation. Attention! The heat of the reaction was related to the equation coefficients. The heat of combustion given by the data book was the heat given per mole or gram of fuel. If the number of moles of fuel was not 1 mole, then the heat of combustion should be multiplied by the coefficient to obtain the heat of the reaction. Calculate the temperature of carbon dioxide in a cylinder. The volume and pressure of the cylinder were known, however, the number of moles of carbon dioxide was unknown. Carbon dioxide was completely produced by octane, so the number of moles of carbon dioxide can be obtained through the quantitative relationship of the reaction equation. Substitute the number of moles of carbon dioxide, the number of kilopA of pressure, and the number of liters of volume into the gas equation to obtain the temperature. The valid values were 3 significant numbers because the significant number of moles, pressure, and volume were 3 digits. Measure the heat of combustion. When combustion was complete, all heat was absorbed by the water in the tank, so the amount of heat absorbed by water was equal to the heat released by combustion. The volume of water was known, as well as the initial and final temperatures of the water. The mass of water was equal to the volume multiplied by the density of the water. Please note that the density of water was not 1.00 grams/ml. The initial temperature of the water is 25 C because the initial state of the water was SLC standard laboratory condition. Step-by-step calculate increasing temperature, the energy absorbed by the water, and the heat of combustion. Please attend the unit here. J and kg must be calculated to kj and g because the answer was asked to express as kjg1. The key point of this topic was to compare the renewability of petroleum diesel and biodiesel. This comparison should relate to the source of petroleum diesel and biodiesel. 1 mark was awarded for correct renewability comparison and another mark was awarded for correct sourcing comparison. Hygroscopic means that taken up and retained under some conditions of humidity and temperature. So, the hygroscopic properties of a fuel means that the ability to absorb water, moisture, from the air. The difference was a keyword. 1 mark was awarded for accurate hygroscopic comparison. Biodiesel is more hygroscopic than petrodiesel. Another mark was awarded for correctly explaining the difference in hygroscopic properties. Biodiesel molecules have polar ester groups, which allow for stronger intermolecular forces with the polar water molecules. Biodiesel is manufactured from renewable, recently living materials by transesterification. The key word was the reference material. These reference materials should include protocols for handling cobalt-2, chloride, a safety data sheet, an MSDS sheet, and a product safety data sheet. Safety knowledge must be asked every year. State the dependent variable and independent variable in steps 1 to 3 of the experimental procedure. Observation provided the clue of the dependent variable. From the observation column, we know that as more HCl was added, the pink color of the solution changed to purple and then to blue. So, the color of the solution was the dependent variable. This sentence also implied that the amount of HCl was an independent variable because HCl in the answer to question B was one of the position of equilibrium, the color of the solution, or color change. And the answer to question C was one of concentration of chloride ions or volume of HCl. Three steps: the experimental process, transforming the experimental process into a scientific conclusion, and finally, translating the scientific conclusion into observed results. Experimental process, the addition of HCl increased the concentration of Cl ions. Next, based on scientific principles, the experimental process was transformed into a scientific conclusion. The scientific principle applied to this question is Le Chatelier's principle. Students only needed to state the name of the scientific principle without restating its content. Based on the scientific principle in the experimental process, the scientific conclusion was obtained: the equilibrium would move to oppose the increase in Cl ions by shifting to the right. However, this scientific conclusion was not an observed phenomenon. Therefore, to translate this scientific conclusion, the equilibrium would move to oppose the increase in Cl ions by shifting to the right, into a color change, you would write, the position of equilibrium moved to the right. The student directly wrote the definition of accurate. Accurate data is measured data that is close to the true value. Only quantitative data had precise concepts, qualitative data lacked precise concepts. Estimating the color change of a solution with the naked eye was a qualitative observation, therefore, the observed data was not precise. While only receiving 2 marks, the answer still included 3 parts: the experimental process, transforming the experimental process into a scientific conclusion, and translating the scientific conclusion into observed results. Earning 1 point for stating the conclusion, the forward reaction is endothermic, or the backward reaction is exothermic. Transforming the statement, place the test tube steps 3 into a beaker of ice water into temperature decreased. Interpreting the blue color of the solution changes back to pink as equilibrium position moved left. Therefore, the justification for your answer is, when the temperature decreased, the equilibrium position moved left, as shown by the color change to pink. This indicates that the backward reaction was exothermic. There were 11 multiple-choice questions worth 1 point each, totaling 11 marks. There were also 3 short answer questions worth a total of 32 marks in this section covering fuel, equilibrium, and rate of reaction. The overall score for this section is 43 points. With a total possible score of 120 points, the percentage for this section was 35.83% of the total score. If you need my help, please add me on WeChat or WhatsApp, and send me an email. Thanks for your attention. Please note Dr. Lou's VCE Chemistry channel.